Hey, I'm back and this is the first video of 2025, and as a quick thing before we start, I'm just going to say I'm so thankful for all the support we had last year, and honestly it's been great, and so let's hope that this year is going to be just as good. So let's get started then. Bro Erech emerged as a kingdom in the wake of Conan Meriadoc's conquest of America. So Conan was a general of Magnus Maximus, a Roman usurper in the 4th century. So Conan situated his capital at Van. Two of his sons would inherit Damnonia and Cornway, with Bro Erech most likely going to another unnamed son, or being shared between his sons, half and half. But another likely explanation for Bro Erech is a man called Caradog Vrechfras. He was the king of Gwent in the 490s, and he supposedly sailed down south and founded Bro Erech in 490. And he might have ruled up until the 540s, as a prince called Caradog is remembered as having recalled St. Padarn to Brittany to serve as the Bishop of Van. At least that's what Joffrey of Monmouth records, so it could be an unreliable narrator, or it could be just two princes being mixed up, which does happen quite a lot in Breton history actually. So the next recorded king of Bro Erech is Erech, and he ruled from somewhere in the 540s or maybe earlier until 550, which is when he died. That's literally all we know about him, but we do know that he was succeeded by Canau, who could have been his son, or he could have just been another Breton noble from the area. So Canau would aid Duke Shram of Aquitaine against his father Clothair of Francia in 560. They would meet the Frankish army in battle, where the combined Franco-Breton army would be defeated. The battle results in Shram being strangled and burnt to death in a cottage. But the king of Bro Erech seems to have gotten off fine, as he did rule for another decade supposedly, but another source does claim that he died in the battle. So it's unclear who rules from around 560 to 570. It could be Canau, but it could be another man. From 570 to 577, the Bishop Macleod of Van is king, or at least ruling instead of a child of the previous king. So Macleod had entered into an agreement with King Boudic of Cornway that they would look after the other man's son or heir if they died first. So when Boudic died in 577, Macleod broke this agreement and led an invasion of Cornway, where he forced Teodric, the son of Boudic, to flee to Dyfed. Eventually Teodric rallied an army and sailed to his homeland, where he defeated Macleod and his eldest son Jacob in battle, and both of them would be killed, either in the fighting or after the battle being captured. Erech, the youngest son of Macleod, would be allowed to rule Bro Erech as a vassal. Something to note about this conflict is the dates provided, as some sources say this happened in the 510s and 520s, others claim that happened in the 570s. It could be a distorted memory of a different invasion by a king of Bro Erech with a similar name in the period between 520 and 540, as the sources disagree on when Caradog of Vrechfras died, as it's already quite murky in the general sense of the area and time period, so I'm going to put with 577 as it makes more sense to put it with there, but it could be either one. Erech II wouldn't have much of a rest, as King Chilperic of the Franks sent an army to subdue him. The army was a very large army, comprised of Saxons from Bayeux, men from Anjou, Maine, Poitou, and Touraine. The Bretons would fight the Saxons with great vigour, managing to rout them within 3 days. This is quite likely one of the best parts of the war, seeing as they probably got revenge for things they'd heard about the Saxons doing towards their cousins, the homeland, back in Britain. But the rest of the French army managed to defeat them, and by 578 the Bretons did submit. So Erech's son would be taken as a hostage, and he'd be forced to pay tribute to the Frankish king. Erech eventually broke his oath and raided Nantes in 587. This angered King Guthrum of Burgundy, who demanded that he pay tribute. So when Erech refused, he sent an army under the command of Bepolum and Ebrachane to crush the rebellious Breton king in either 589 or 590. Fredegund, the wife of the late King Chilperic, would send a force of Saxons to aid Erech, as she hated Ebrachane. The Burgundian army split in two, with Bepolum engaging Erech in battle for 3 days before his forces would be defeated, and he himself would be killed in fighting. Ebrachane would force Erech to retreat, but Erech was captured at some point before 594. We're not sure exactly when, as it doesn't tell us, but it'd be fairly quick, I'd assume, after having had substantial losses against the previous Burgundian army. So he'd be forced to pay tribute and give his nephew to the Burgundian king. And again, this must be funny to him. He's had to give his son, and now he's had to give his nephew, and he still has to pay tribute. All of that for nothing. Canau II, which is the firstborn son of Erech, the one that he did send to the Frankish court in 578, he'd take over from his father in some point after 594, and again the records don't really tell us. So Canau II's reign is quite murky, as Gregory of Tours had died in 594, and so a lot of information of the Breton kingdoms that we've had, which is because of Gregory's work, tends to disappear now because no one chronicles any Breton history, and the only things we do know about Canau's reign is that he had no children, and a very distant cousin of his, Saint Eudecael of Damnonia, would inherit his kingdom in 635. Merging Damnonia and Erech, this wouldn't last completely long, as Erech would be divided between the Franks and Damnonia, as the Franks would set up the Breton marches, with Van and Rennes being mostly in the borderlands, with the fact that the borderlands would stay for a few more centuries, as the Bretons would only manage to regain the territories in the 9th century after a major resurgence. But we do have some more information on those two cities, as there'd be two different lines of counts recorded for Van and Rennes. Van is likely more important as the ancestral capital Erech, and then Rennes is just a regional capital for that area. And that's the end, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.